about some of my experiences more recently in the area of program management. And then I'll keep my remarks very brief, do it for about 15, 20 minutes, and then we can have an interactive session. I'd like to hear your comments, and also if you have any questions, I'll try and attempt to answer them. I'll take 2 examples. Unfortunately, all my examples will be from the technology industry, IT and the communication industry, because the only industry that I know is the ICT industry. I understand that there are many people from other industries as well, like manufacturing, but my apologies to them if it doesn't sound very relevant to their respective industries. I want to talk about one project that we started about 3.5 years back. It was an initiative in education, initiative in training, what turned out to be, perhaps many of us know, the organization called the ICT Academy of Tamil Nadu, ICT-ACT. Okay. So this started as an idea about 4 years back in one of the CII events, where speaker after speaker kept complaining that the quality of people coming out of education institutions is going down, and many of the people who are coming from industry, from academia, are not really employable directly by the industry. What can we do about it? So CII had this idea. So the way to tackle this is to go and tackle it at the academic institutions, at the engineering colleges, which is where the bulk of the hiring was happening as far as the ICT industry is concerned. So is there something that we can do in terms of educating the teachers who can in turn educate the students so that they can be better equipped to face the realities in a corporate world? Okay, that's how this initiative started. And the government of India, the Department of IT, Information Technology, Government of India, decided to fund it. They said, we have some money for a project. We'll give you about 6 crores. This is a project for educating about 5,000 teachers in engineering colleges who would in turn train and equip 250,000 people from their respective colleges so that they become directly employable in the industry. So it started on a project mode. And the only other condition that the government of India had was, we wanted to be an initiative in Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu pitched for it, we got it. The state government to participate as well as the industry to participate. Some members of the IT industry participated in that initiative, and we started it as a project. Got some initial funding, put together a project plan of, it was seen as a simple thing. There are 5,000 teachers. First one is we have to identify where these teachers are, which are the engineering colleges. Let's do a pilot project, get the contents, get the teachers, and then the goals are very, very clear. Put together a project plan, and then the usual thing all of you are familiar with, we started. Very soon after our commencement, we realized that while this will work in the immediate term, the pilot will be successful clearly because we are dealing with 50 to 100 teachers. To scale it requires different capabilities, different competencies. It's not something that you can just replicate. It's easy. For example, just one issue that we had. The first project, we said we want to train 20 teachers in a classroom for about a week. We signed up with people like IBM, Microsoft, Oracle, and the industry-specific companies to come in and provide the training, and some HR organizations to provide communication, soft skill, business training as well. Went off all right. The 25 teachers enjoyed the program, went back promising that they will use the knowledge that they have received and conduct or include it in the programs that they conduct in the respective colleges. When it came to the next stage of scaling it up from pilot to a larger scale, and of course we had a time limit, we had to do this in about 3 years. 25 to 100, the first major challenge was to get that many teachers. We had to go and get these teachers from some of the interior parts of the state, because it's far more relevant to the teachers in engineering colleges, in remote places, interior parts of Tamil Nadu, teachers in Chennai, because of their proximity to industry and large companies were all present in Chennai, they had a certainly a higher level of knowledge compared to the teachers from the remote areas. So when we went there, when we went to the remote colleges, the teachers were unwilling to participate in this program. First and foremost was, why should we participate in this program? What is it that we gain? Number one. Two, even if we gain something, how do you make sure that whatever we learn would be automatically transferred or translated to the students so that they become more effective? Is there a measure? We'll come and attend the training program, and then in turn, if we don't teach, what happens? And three, do you want all of us to come to a place like Chennai or to a larger city and come and attend this program? The logistics issue. So for the first time, we said, this project mode of just scaling it up from a project plan and replicating it in multiple locations is not going to work. So immediately, we put a stop to the program, and then we had the CEO, Shivakumar, who would by then realize that we have to get into a different mode. We consulted some external people, and they said for an activity of this size and this magnitude, just project management principles are not going to be sufficient. You'll have to get into a program mode, define a program, and after that program is defined, then execute. There may well be a number of projects within that program that you want to execute, but then there'll be a number of strategies that you have to evolve in order to, for example, the first problem that we faced of attracting teachers. Why should they attend? What's the incentive? Would the college encourage them to attend this training program? Would they give them an opportunity to participate, number one? Two, financially, would they be any better off after the training program? Et cetera, et cetera. So we had a project going which specifically addressed how do we incentivize or motivate the teachers to participate in this program? To simply answer the question, what's in it for me? Is the question that the teachers were asking. The teachers could be convinced. We had a program or a project to take care of that. How do we convince the universities and the colleges? Some of these are paid programs. Many of the teachers said, although we can afford it, but why should we pay for this? It's something that is going to benefit the institution of the college and the students. I'm not particularly inclined to paying for this program. So we had to go back to the university or the college and ask them, see, this is something that we are training your teachers. It's only right that you as an institution will have to pay the expenses associated with that. So there is a project that we put together to go around, talk to something like 350 engineering colleges. It's a project. You cannot do it overnight. It takes several months for that to happen. But that's one initiative, one project that was initiated to convince the engineering colleges to say that you're going to benefit because your students are going to benefit. And if you're able to have a greater number of people from your college placed in the industry after this training program, it's a win-win for you. You've got better teachers. You have students who become employable and who are actually getting employed. And the colleges, many of the private colleges saw this as a great opportunity. They said, oh, this is fantastic. If more and more companies come to us to participate in the campus program, maybe I can hike the student fee from the following year. There was that motivation also. This is interesting. We can well take advantage of this. So many of these colleges signed up. And after all these projects, all of them will have to run at appropriate speed so that the program that we launch goes from place to place. We go to the colleges, train the teachers, certify them, evaluate the whole process of certification and the subsequent transformation, conduct tests for the students, and finally, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. We may do all this, but at the end of everything, if the percentage of people from these colleges who are getting employed does not increase, the whole purpose is lost. So we had to go back to the original project and redefine the goals. The direction was broadly all right, but the goal, as was set out by the ministry, was to just train 5,000 teachers who would in turn train 250,000 students. Since they were giving the money, all the accounting and the audit, etc., was geared towards measuring those two parameters. But unless we get into a program mode and define a different objective, which is getting a greater number of people from these colleges into the industry, This is not going to yield the end result to all the stakeholders, like both the teachers as well as the engineering institution. So we got into that program, and there was a question, which means ICT Academy at some stage will have to facilitate job opportunities for the people from these colleges who have teachers certified by the ICT Academy. We said if you have certified teachers, there are better chances that companies will come to your college for recruitment. So ICT Academy worked with the industry, with the company, saying that we have trained so many teachers, and this is how they perform. We have certified so many of them. So would you like to go and visit that college and look at the students from there? So the wheel started moving. And then we found at the end of the second year that we were able to increase the number of colleges that participated in the campus program, and also the number of students from the state of Tamil Nadu had a somewhat of a disproportionate advantage in terms of getting into the job market. Okay. Several more from the engineering colleges in the state were employed by the industry. In fact, in the third year, the final year when we completed the training of all the 5,000 people, the number was something like 38% higher than it was in the previous year, which itself was slightly higher than the previous year. So on the last challenge is, all this is fine. We have completed. We have run out of money. The government gave us some money. I think they gave up to about 8 crores for this particular program. We have completed the task. What next? We cannot leave it like this. Things are changing. If we have trained the teachers, 5,000 teachers in certain aspects, but the technology is changing rapidly. So from a project to a program mode, from the program mode, we have to very quickly shift gears and make it a sustainable organization. We cannot say the funding is over. ICT Academy has done its job. So now we are closing this, winding down, and we have solved the problem for which we were set up in the first place. We couldn't do that. So we had to get into the next stage of making it a sustainable organization. Okay. How do we keep doing this? We are not going to get any more funding. The government is not going to say, it's no more money. This is something that I started, you have completed it. We cannot go on funding this. So there are 2 ideas that came up with the team. They said, let's replicate this model, the ICT Academy model, in other states. Okay. Not with a view to promoting or earning revenue for ICT Academy in Tamil Nadu, but as a model that has worked and successful, which is an exercise that's going on, which is continuing because it takes months and years to sell a concept that has worked in one place to another state, particularly in our context, in our country, where the person that we are trying to sell to always knows more than what the person who is selling. So they say, we have done this, this is child's play. So that's a challenge that we are going through. There are 2 states that have already started doing it. One small state, Pondicherry, and Kerala has started the ICT Academy. And there are a few other states who are putting together a model for replicating whatever has been done here into that type of an institution. And now the ICT Academy has also built a sustainable model in terms of making it a learning institution into which engineering institutions and other arts and science colleges will automatically come in, enroll themselves for specific programs, technology-based learning, et cetera, et cetera. So this is an example of how, starting from bottom up, starting as a project organization, learned how difficult it is to sustain if you start bottom up and making those steps every step of the way and get into a program mode, and then now into a company or a firm or an institution building mode. Fantastic experience. Different capabilities were required at different points in time. Initially, just limited project management experience was sufficient. The next stage was program management. Program management is a lot more top-down. You have to have that strategic thinking. Project management, yes, there is a limited amount of tactical thinking that is required, but not a great deal of strategy, whereas program management is really top-down, and managing the various pieces together is a big challenge, which this institution covered. And then now in the process of institution building. So that's one journey, successful journey. The other example that I'll talk about is the National Skills Development Corporation. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that, heard of NSDC, And it's an institution that started with a similar goal. The ICT Academy, they said, train 5,000 teachers who will in turn develop 250,000 students who will become employable. NSDC said, skill 150 million people in India over the next 10, 12 years. That's all. These are the skill categories. There are some 21 skill categories. We want people to be skilled. And what is the budget that's available? As much as you want. Initially, here is 5,000 crores that's available for a program like this. Okay, so this kind of a program, you cannot adopt an ICT Academy type of a strategy. You cannot start from grassroots. Oh, let me try a pilot. Out of the 150 million people, let me figure out a way of training 1 million people or 500,000 people and then see how that scales. Just will not work. Okay. So the approach there has to be completely top-down. Right from the beginning, you'll have to figure out, how am I going to accomplish this? What kind of a program is this? What are the goals? The broad goal. Anytime you get government funding, you'll get a very simple one-liner or two-liner. Train 5,000 teachers in 3 years, here's the money. Skill 150 million people, here's the money. Okay. That's not good enough. If you want to do it over a period of time, you have to really look at, what are the implications? I can train 150 million people. Are there enough jobs for all those people? How do you know that the country requires 150 million skilled people in various areas? Do you know what the demand is? Do we know where the demand is? Because we could create the supply, train 100 million people in the metros, and the demand is all in non-metros. There is a huge migration problem that you're creating, or there is a huge mismatch that is being created. So to put together all these things, again, NSDC as a corporation worked with consultants and put together an internal team who very clearly defined what's the structure of this program going to be like. In order for us to accomplish this kind of a massive goal, okay, in each of the areas, what is the structure? What are the sub-objectives? How do we say that we are along the right direction, let alone achieving any results? We may be able to achieve some results initially, but it may take years for us to get any benefits or any results, but we have to still put the infrastructure in place for a massive program like this. So there was a lot of activity that happened, and people finally, based on the consultants' views, we said, we cannot think of this as a project or a program. We really have to think about the Skill Development Corporation as some kind of a private equity fund. It is a fund that is going to create a number of institutions, number of organizations, training organizations, specialized organizations that we fund. Because if you just dole out money, the money will be burnt, and at the end of the day, after the money is spent, if you don't find the right skills, where are we? We cannot restart this kind of a program. So let's run it like a private equity, where this will create entrepreneurial activity in skill building in the country, and then adopt that as a model for all purposes, for all the things that we do subsequently, which is so what NSDC does is to encourage key players, industry players, and the industry associations to come up with plans for creating, number one, what are known as sector skill councils in a particular sector, catering as a sector, construction as a sector. If you want to skill 10,000 farmers, agriculture sector, that's a sector, agriculture is a sector. Let's talk and set up a sector skill council which will define where the demand is, so we know where the supply has to be created, number one. What is the training content? What is the skill that is required? If you go to a place like, today's context, you go to farmland and interior parts of Tamil Nadu, there is no farm labor, not available. People just do not want to work on farms. But at the same time, people who have large farms, there's one particular farm that we spoke to, they said they had one combine. The combine is that harvester, the machine, a high level of mechanization. One harvester about 5 years back, which supplemented all the labor that they were using in that farmland, to now they want to add something like 23 to 24 combines to replace all the labor. They are saying we will have about 1,000 acres of land, probably manned by no more than 50 people compared to the earlier thousands of people that were working in the farmland. So as our National Skills Development Corporation or the company funded by NSDC, if they go and talk to them about monsoon, about how to sow seeds, how deep to dig, not going to be relevant. The training in the agriculture sector is not going to be about farming and weather and monsoons. That's something that someone else is going to deal with. The training has got to be how to operate these machines, because it is going to get increasingly mechanized. So some of those aspects came about because of the sector skill councils, and then the sector skill councils, or SSCs, they were tasked with defining the occupational standards, defining vocational skills requirements, matching it, providing an alternate path for people who are skilled to get into the education or the academic stream, and people from the academic stream to go into the skill stream, et cetera, et cetera. So all that mapping, all that work that had to be done has been planned out, and then individual institutions have been funded to the extent that they require in order to start the training programs, and that's an activity that has commenced. Early days yet. It's been operational in the last 2-3 years. Funding to the extent of training about 30-35 million people over the next 10 years has happened. So which means it doesn't mean that that many people will definitely be created, or the first year, they'll probably have about 800 to 1,000 million people who would be trained by all these institutions all over the country. And the measure of training, if you're funding these type of companies who are going to provide that skill development activity, there has to be some measure. I can set up a company, say I train 2,000 people, I spend so much money. The way the funding happens is you can train them, but you'll get the money only if at least 70% of the people you have trained or upgraded the skills are employed. Okay. Otherwise, you just keep training them and leave them. You're leaving a whole lot of frustrated people because they don't have jobs. So that's a measure that we'll have to keep track. We'll have to very precisely define. Just to give you one example at a micro level, what is employment? I train somebody and provide them employment. Employment is not just first-time employment. There are people who need to be upskilled in order to move to a different type of a job. There are people who want to move from the skills line to an academic line. They want to study. A 12th pass out has been working in a manufacturing company, and he says, now I'm ready to do a polytechnic course. I want to go and study in a polytechnic. So there's something that you have to educate him and get him ready to go into the polytechnic, and has to be accepted. That's considered as having created an employment. Or the polytechnic who has worked in the industry wants to get into engineering, so on and so forth. And this is something that we have to cover for so many different lines, including the medical line. Medical line is one of the more complex ones, where you have all the skill levels, starting from the ward boys to the nurses to the paramedics to the entry-level doctors, the surgeons, et cetera, et cetera. So the entire program is put together, and the whole thing is functioning as a whole ecosystem in a very, very sustainable way. As to how successful it is, we will know only after several years. But the important point, the point that I want to stress here, what is of relevance to this group, is the top-down approach and how this kind of a program has to be mapped, keeping at all points in time the overall goal in mind. Strategically defining a program and the subcomponents and how that is going to work is very important. It's the same situation. One of the learnings that we have from the ICT Academy is, so how do we encourage the engineering colleges to come and participate? They may be very indifferent to this program. Okay. So exactly the same thing. How do we incentivize individual entrepreneurs to come in and participate in the skill program? So there is a group within NSDC which is about incentivizing and getting proposals from the various people who can actually deliver the skill development. So it's a market development activity, which is something that the government institutions are not used to. So the complexities are very many. Fortunately, there's sufficient capability that's available in the country among the consulting organizations and among individuals who can tackle this problem. And now NSDC is in a growth mode. It's hiring more people, trying to build that organization, trying to get into a sustainable mode. So these are two samples or examples that I thought I'll share with you this evening. I think I've taken much more time than I thought I would take explaining these two examples. I'll stop here. Thank you for listening. And if there are any questions, any comments, I'll be happy to answer. I'll get it. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Especially a point on how important it's not only to finish the project on time, but also sustain it afterwards. We had people asking you a few questions. I have some of them here. I'll read them out for you if you can answer. How can India become project management powerhouse, and what needs to change in our thinking? Question from Vinu Shankar.
It's a tough one. The most important thing that when you begin any project, the goals and the objectives will have to be absolutely clear. It may not be clear on day one. Initially, when you commence a project, at least in the initial stages, the direction will be clear. I'm headed in this particular direction. That's interesting. At least I'm not straying all over the place. The direction is clear. If I'm headed in this, the vector is defined. What is the scalar that I have to chase? Where am I stopping in this particular direction? What's the goal? That's a key determinant. That's a very, very key determinant. What in most business or in the IT projects, they'll say, what is the requirement? What is the end goal? What is the requirement? Many projects fail, in today's context, technology projects. None of the technology projects fail because of technology, because we don't have technical capability. Rarely does that happen. Even if there are issues, there are sufficient number of people who have the capability who will jump into the project and make it successful. They fail because the project management is all right, not all right, or they fail because the goal or the requirements are not clear. If we have issues with that, then we always have a problem. And that's the reason why people say, define your goal and the requirements at as minute a level as possible right up front and communicate it to the entire team. Communication to the entire team is extremely important. If all of them know, no matter, as a project manager, you may determine that it is not necessary for a person who is going to be doing one component to know about the overall goals and the overall project plan, etc. That would be a mistake. Because the people that we are dealing with, particularly in our industry, they're all knowledgeable, extremely knowledgeable. If you tell them the goal, they'll align themselves with the goal in a fantastic manner. And the best way to conclude an answer to this question is to look at that. Accenture used to have an advertisement which they would show a fish, a large fish swimming with a number of small fish inside, all of them pointing in the same direction, moving in the same direction. If you want to accomplish something, if you want to be efficient, that alignment is extremely important. The goal is there. If the individual fish within that large fish are all pointing in different directions, you're not going to get that efficiency. If they are aligned perfectly, you're going to get that. Alignment is through that communication, and that's the way to build that capability.
Thank you, sir. During recession and slow economic times, often employee benefits like training and leaves take a low priority. What is your view on this? Question from Vaidya.
Yeah, it's a question of necessity. You are conserving your resources during bad times in order for you to use it during good times. It depends also on the scale and the strategies of different companies. Perhaps some of the larger companies would probably overinvest during down times and prepare themselves and keep themselves ready because they know times are going to get better. It's always cycles. That's one. Whereas other organizations, mid-sized organizations, or even large organizations that do not have deep pockets or do not have a sustainable model built, they'll have to take these type of short-term measures. So there is, one cannot say whether something is right or not. But usually, all of us know that higher the investment, greater the growth. You keep investing in people, invest in technology, investing in methods, investing in money, investing in machines, whatever. Any investment will lead to higher levels of growth. Investment in people leads to the highest growth. Predictable growth in machines and this. You can invest in process, systems, machines, etc. They'll deliver a predictable this thing. It's all certain. Investment in people could provide disproportionate benefits because there is an element of innovation that individuals can add that methods, money, machines cannot add. It's always linear, whereas people could be exponential. So the people like us in this industry, investing in individuals is extremely important. Good times are bad.
Thank you, sir. Next question is, what role do you see for project managers to help the management make decisions on portfolio prioritization, aligning with organizational vision?
What role? I mean, it's a very simple answer. One word answer would be important role. That's about where I can say it's an important role that they have to play in aligning and putting that there. There's always a question in manufacturing industries. Do you have a seat at the table when the CEO and the chief operating officer are discussing? Do you have a seat at the table, or is it only the CEO, COO, CFO, or the chief people officer who are constantly discussing where the others come in later at the next level? This question used to be asked about the chief information officers, CIOs. But 7, 8 years back, the CIOs were not at the table, strategic decisions. In fact, in many instances, even the chief people officers were not at the table, were not invited to the table. But increasingly, those things have changed. Right now, in most corporations, whether in the IT industry or outside, normally the head of HR, the information officer, CIOs, they all have a seat at the table, at the strategic table. When I say table, when the company's direction, the question that's been asked, when it is decided, all those people are there. Is there something like a chief program officer of a company, or is there a role if there are multiple projects, particularly a power project? There are so many different programs that are going on. There are different people managing, different program managers managing each one. If there is a chief program manager, does that person who manages this portfolio of programs deserve a seat at the table? Certainly yes, but in today's context, I don't think we have that kind of a position. It's the chief operating officer who's doing it. If there is a new plant, then there is perhaps a person who's a director who's managing that. But if there is a chief program officer, and there's a good enough case for that kind of a position to be created. If such a thing were to happen, surely they'll find a place at the seat, find a seat at the table.
Thank you, sir. That was a question from Arkul Shenoy, and you kind of answered the next one as well.
Very good.
Which
Can
was about the panel discussion that we had yesterday around the need for a chief project officer. Has the time come? And the two questions that were, what benefits do you think a chief project officer would bring? And you just answered that. Probably the next question is, are you considering having a CPO in your own organization?
They may go different titles, but ours is a project-based organization. All consulting companies are all project-based, project or program-based. So although they do not have the title, leader of a business unit is a chief program officer for that particular business unit.
So these were some of the written questions we had. Do you want to?
Thank you very much. I enjoyed this interaction. All the very best.